The ORM data source is how your report talks to an Odoo model. There are two types, flat and parent-child. A flat data source draws from a single model, every field on that model, and its related models using Odoo's dot notation is available to your report bands without extra setup. A parent-child data source joins two related models via a one-to-many relationship on the parent, so fields from both levels can appear in the same report. The Pro version also supports SQL data sources for custom database queries, but in this tutorial we will focus on ORM data sources. The data grouping and sorting concepts, which we cover here, apply to both ORM and SQL data sources, so what you learn will serve you regardless of which type you use. Regardless of which data source you choose, the data the report engine receives is always a simple flat list, one row per detail record, with any parent fields repeated on every row. This design keeps the banded layout engine simple and predictable. In a flat data source, the report automatically knows every field on the model. You never have to list them. Just type the field name in your band layout and it works. Why? Because there is only one model, so there is no ambiguity about which record a field belongs to. No configuration needed beyond selecting the model itself. With a parent-child data source, every field on both models must be listed explicitly. The engine cannot auto-scan because it receives data from two separate models. It needs to know which fields belong to the parent and which belong to the child. Since both models may share field names, for example, both an invoice and its lines often have a field called name, you resolve the conflict by aliasing the child's copy using the as operator. The child record's name field becomes name as line underscore name in the field definition, and line underscore name is what you use in your band layout. Without explicit aliases, the engine cannot tell which name you mean. The banded report. Writer has two ordering controls, the data source order and the grouping order by, and they deliberately do not layer on top of each other. Understanding why requires understanding a single constraint. The grouping engine detects groups by walking through records one by one and watching for value changes. If partner A's invoices are on rows 1 and 5 with partner B on rows 2 through 4, you get two separate partner A groups. That is almost never useful. To prevent this, the engine applies a safety net. By default, it resorts the data by the grouping fields before rendering. This guarantees groups are always contiguous. It means the grouping order by always overrides the data source order, not because of an arbitrary design choice, but because the safest default must be correct groups. If you need the data source order preserved, you opt out explicitly with order by set to none in the grouping section. This gives us three ordering modes. Mode 1, default auto sort. Omit order by from the grouping section entirely. The engine automatically sorts by every level field in the order they appear in the levels array, all ascending. If you have three grouping levels, partner, then state, then category, the engine sorts by partner, then state, then category. The data source order is completely replaced. Groups are guaranteed correct. This is the simplest and safest choice. Mode 2, setting order by to none in the grouping section. The engine skips the resort entirely. The data source order is preserved as is. Groups may fragment if the data source is not sorted by the nominated group fields. Use this when the selection order must be preserved, such as action-triggered reports where the user expects records in the order they selected them. Mode 3, explicit order by. You specify the exact sort expression, such as partner, ID, invoice-date desk. The engine ignores both the data source order and the default group field sort. Use this when you need a specific within-group sequence that the default auto sort cannot produce. For example, you may want to group by customer and print order by order number within customer. These three modes replace each other. Whichever you set in the grouping section is the final sort applied before rendering. They never combine. Parent-child data sources add a separate dimension using the detail order directive. This controls the sequence of child lines within each parent and is applied during flattening. It is independent of both the data source order and the grouping order by, as long as the grouping sort does not include child-level fields. In practice, grouping sorts parent fields and detail order sorts child fields, so they rarely interfere. Choosing between flat and parent-child data sources depends on what you need the report to do. A flat data source draws from a single model. Every field on that model is auto-available, and you do not have to list them explicitly. A parent-child data source draws from two related models, requires explicit field aliasing, but gives you master detail layout. Use a flat data source when you are reporting on a single model and all fields you need are on that model or reachable through dot notation. This is the simplest path. Use a parent-child data source when your report needs master detail layout. Headers with repeating line items, such as invoices, quotations, or statements. There are two practical reasons to prefer parent-child over flat in this situation. First, selecting records by the parent model is more efficient than selecting by child records and traversing up through model references. Second, some parent fields may not be accessible from the child model through Odoo's field referencing mechanism. There is also a third advantage specific to action-triggered reports. When a user selects records and expects them to be printed in that exact order, a parent-child data source can deliver it. The engine restores the parent selection order, referenced in the data source domain as active_IDs, while keeping child lines sorted by the detail order independently. A flat data source cannot do this. It has one combined sort, so you must choose between selection order and line sequence. Parent-child separates the two. Principles for ordering. If you want the data sorted purely by your group levels, omit order by from the grouping section. The engine auto-sorts by every level field. The data source order is replaced entirely, so do not rely on it for sequence. If you want a custom sort that still aligns with your groups, use an explicit grouping order by. For example, partner ID, invoice, date, desk. The first fields must match your level field definitions. This keeps ordering and grouping defined together. If you are sure of the ordering you have assigned to your data source, set grouping order by to none. Ensure your data source order field sequence aligns with your grouping levels so groups remain contiguous. If both the data source and the grouping section specify sort criteria, the grouping order by overrides the data source order. They never combine. The detail order in parent-child data sources is applied during flattening and is independent of the grouping order by, provided the grouping sort does not reference child-level fields. For example, when printing user-selected invoices, detail order ensures child lines print in the sequence determined by the line's sequence field. For flat data sources, simply pick your model and you are done. All fields are available. For parent-child data sources, be sure to alias every duplicate field name to keep names collision-free in the band editor, and set separate orders for parent and child records. The engine auto-sorts by your grouping field unless you set order by to none in the grouping section. Generally, set order by to none in the grouping section when the report is triggered from a server action so the user selection order is preserved. Start with a flat data source to learn the workflow. Our report builder works with flat data sources and is an excellent learning tool. We have another tutorial on using the report builder. Move to the parent-child model when your report needs master detail layout. However, much can be achieved with the flat model. Have a look at our demo invoices that came with the application. One is printed using a flat model and the other using the parent-child model, but they both produce the same formatted result. However, there are better ordering options with the parent-child version. Generally, producing a beautiful report will require several iterations. Understanding data sources and groups is important when using the report writer, and we hope we have made their usage clear. However, that is it for this tutorial, but be sure to check out our other tutorials on our YouTube channel.